Today is June 25th, and I genuinely believe that many Kenyans do not understand how important this day is.
The escalation on June 25th, often referred to as Black Tuesday, did not just happen overnight. It began entirely online before spilling onto the streets.
Today is not just a day that we remember those who died. Today is not just a day about flowers. It's not just a day about memorials. It's not even about protests. Today is about something much, much bigger. Today, Kenya, our Kenya, is standing at a crossroads that many countries before us have faced, and they have, some of them, chosen correctly, and some of them have failed.
Mimi Samia Suluhu Hassan.
And once they have failed, they never fully recovered. And you know the scariest part about all this? I believe many Kenyans do not even realize the choice that they have to make today.
Chingine ambacho pia kinazungumziwa sana ni kuhusiana na goons. So ni kumaanisha kwamba hivi maandamano hayatafanyika hapa nchini Kenya kwa sababu ya goons.
Well, everybody is actually focused on whether the protest is going to happen or not. Something much, much bigger, and I repeat, something much, much bigger is actually happening underneath.
The president is being dishonest, is not coming out clearly to say, in accordance with the Constitution, or protect your right to protest. Instead, he is warning us about how we exercise that right.
If we are not careful, we might wake up tomorrow and realize that a right we thought was actually guaranteed has actually disappeared. Let's talk about it. If you love this kind of content, go ahead and like this video and subscribe. Now let's get to the video.
Yani hawa goons ndo watazuia watu wasiandamane hapa nchini Kenya. Manake kila mtu goons. Huyu goon ni nani?
Right now, the country is actually divided. On one side, the government is saying that today is going to be a normal working day. They do not want protests. They do not want demonstrations. They do not want any sort of gatherings.
Let's not talk of demonstrations day out, day in. We are talking about demonstrations in this country. We are scaring away the investors.
They have repeatedly warned against people going to the streets. Some leaders have even suggested that force will actually be used against those who choose to participate.
I assure you itakuwa asanteni sana, Mungu awabariki.
The message is actually very clear. You either stay at home or you go to work, but do not protest. Do not demonstrate. Kindly, today, just move on with your life.
Wewe tutakushughulikia. Na kuna tafadhali tutakushughulikia. Kwa sababu we want a peaceful country. Uwezi kuwa unajifanya unaenda maandamano, unaenda kuharibu mali ya watu, unachoma mali ya watu, unaumiza watu wengine. That is not acceptable.
But then that immediately raises a question. Because if today we're just going to commemorate the lives of those who were actually killed, why is the government so uncomfortable? Why is the government so afraid? Why does the thought of young people carrying flowers create so much anxiety within the state? That is the kind of question that every Kenyan is actually asking.
Tutakuwa tunahimiza kumbukumbu la wanajenzi ambao waliuawa, ambao walichinjwa, ambao walipigwa risasi kikatili na maafisa wa polisi.
But then there's also the opposition side, and also the opposition is actually divided. Some leaders are saying that people should actually stay away, not because they disagree with the cause of what is going to happen today. No, but because they fear what the government is willing to do and actually might do. Someone like Rigathi Gachagua has actually repeatedly warned people that the government is actually looking for an excuse to unleash violence, an excuse to create chaos, an excuse to repeat what has already happened, killing people. His message is actually very simple. Do not give the state the opportunity. If you can, you must then stay safe. You must stay at home. You must do everything to stay alive.
And former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has urged Kenyans to avoid taking to the streets on June 25th, asking them to channel their frustrations through the ballot in the 2027 general elections instead. Former, tulia tu. Eomba kura bila kuingilia mambo ya watu wengine.
But then there's the other side of opposition leaders, people like James Orengo, people who argue that constitutional rights only remain rights once they are exercised. That if citizens become afraid of using their rights, then eventually those rights cease to exist. And that argument carries a lot of weight, because what good is a constitutional right if it only exists on paper?
Ni haya tu peke yake ya ukumbusho wa Gen Z, ama pia hawa goons pia tutaona pia wakiathiri maandamano mengine ambayo yatafanyika hapo usoni? Maandamano kama ya madaktari, ndio maandamano kama ya walimu, maandamano na wengine wao ambao wataka kufanya maandamano.
And then we have the people who are actually caught in the middle. And these are the young people. These are the Gen Zs and the millennials, the ordinary mwananchi, the people who have no bodyguards, they have no security detail, they have no political offices, they have no protection. These are the people that are facing the hardest decision, because deep down, many of them agree with the principle. Many of them agree and actually believe that June 25 matters and it must happen. Many of them want to honor those who lost their lives fighting for this great nation. Many of them believe that deaths should never be forgotten. But also, they remember something else. They remember funerals. They remember tears. They remember mothers crying. They remember fathers burying their children. They remember blood. And also, they find themselves asking a painful question. What is the right thing to do?
As the country prepares to mark the June 25th anniversary and celebrate the lives that were lost, we are right here with a group of youths calling themselves Vijana Naruto, who are marching for unity and responsible civic engagement. The big question remains, how will they ensure that their march for unity and peace is not interpreted as discouraging citizens from exercising their constitutional rights?
But perhaps there's an even bigger question that we should be asking, a question that should concern every Kenyan regardless of their political affiliation. What happens to our constitutional rights? What happened to the right to assemble? What happened to the right to picket? What happened to the right to protest peacefully? Those rights are not gifts from our politicians. They are constitutional guarantees. They were fought for. People suffered for them. As a matter of fact, people died for them. Entire generations sacrificed so much so that the future generations, us, would actually enjoy these freedoms.
Na Kenya mzima itakuwa ni maandamano, sio? Sasa vijana mko tayari? Mko tayari?
So are we now quietly accepting that those rights can actually be taken away? Because if we accept that today, what happens tomorrow?
Hivi wanaosema kwamba hawa majenzi na hawa Wakenya na waathiriwa wasiandamane kwa amani kupeleka maua, wana maana kwamba ndo mwisho wa maandamano ya wananchi wa Kenya katika taifa la Kenya?
And this is where this conversation becomes uncomfortable, because history has given us examples. We have seen countries where citizens slowly lost their freedom to protest. Not overnight, not through one dramatic announcement, but gradually, little by little, until one day, people realized that they no longer had a voice. And when elections became questionable, nobody could actually protest. I'm talking about Tanzania, by the way. Or in other situations, when a leader chooses to overstay in power. But you know what? Nobody can actually protest. We see institutions fail and nobody can protest. Fear becomes normalized. Silence becomes normal. And eventually, people accept things that they would actually never have accepted before. That is actually the real danger. Not today's protest. Hapana. The danger is the precedent that is being set.
Hivi wanajua kwamba maandamano yanaruhusiwa kikatiba katika taifa la Kenya? Na hivi serikali yenyewe inataka na rais aliapa kulinda katiba ya Kenya. Hivi rais na serikali kwa ujumla walioapa kulinda katiba ya Kenya wanataka kusema kwamba wameshindwa na goons ambao wanataka kuharibu maandamano ambayo yameruhusiwa kikatiba?
Imagine if today becomes the day that Kenyans accept that protesting is simply too dangerous. Imagine if citizens begin convincing themselves that speaking out loud is no longer worth the risk. Imagine if the government realizes that they can actually suppress demonstrations simply by creating enough fear. What happens next? What happens the next time that citizens actually have legitimate grievances? What happens when future governments violate our rights? What happens when wananchi need to voice their grievances? They need to be heard. Will they still have that option? Or will today become the day that that option quietly disappeared?
And I'm going to take us back to what all these leaders have been saying. Mheshimiwa Kaluma, over the weekend, clearly seated there the PS of security, Raymond, telling him, shoot them to kill if they show up for demonstration.
That is why I believe that this day is bigger than politics. It's bigger than William Ruto. It's bigger than the opposition. It's bigger than Gen Zs. It's bigger than any individual citizen or leader. Today is really just a test of what kind of democracy Kenya wants to be. A test of whether constitutional rights remain constitutional rights or whether they only exist when the government is actually comfortable with them.
Kwani wametoa maroli juu ya Thursday ama ni nini? Wametoa malori juu ya Thursday ama ni nini?
If there's one thing that history has actually taught us is this: rights are rarely taken away all at once. They're actually surrendered slowly, one exception at a time, one compromise at a time, one moment of fear at a time. And that is why what happens today actually really matters. Not just because of June 25th, not just because of this year 2026, but for the Kenya that will exist long after all of us are gone. The question is, when the future generations look back at this moment, will they say that Kenyans protected their freedoms? Or will they say that this is the day that we allowed those freedoms and rights to begin slipping away? Subscribe.